I have to preface this video as the dynamics have changed since the recording of the conversation that you're about to either hear or watch. I had a wonderful conversation with Dr. Yardan Shabazz. Very enlightening, very rich story, very rich history associated with the Shabazz family. Dr. Yardan Shabazz left the conversation with a sense of urgency to reach out to his father. And it was a very timely act. Since the recording of this conversation and the airing of this podcast episode, Dr. Shabazz lost his father. This episode is airing with his blessing as he believes the testimony associated with this conversation and platform will help someone. And that's the point. Time heals nothing. Action does. This episode is respectfully presented in honor of Minister James Shabazz. Welcome to the Dear Son Podcast, episode 10. This is something to be celebrated because most podcasters don't make it to episode 6. That was your lesson for today. Speaking of lessons, today we have a tremendous guest on the show, an educator, a very articulate brother. We're going to get into his full story. I want you guys to provide a warm virtual welcome for Dr. Yardan Shabazz. Dr. Shabazz, welcome to the Dear Son Podcast. How you doing, my brother?
10. Time peace.
It's up. It's up. I tell you what, people are going to look at this episode and be like, what happened? What happened between episode 9 and 10?
I'm here for the assist.
I know that's right. The dime. How you doing, man? I always want to start the show making sure the guests are in a great headspace so that the conversation will reflect that. How you feeling, man?
Yeah, great. I feel healthy, so that's good.
Talk about that. What does healthy feel like to you?
Healthy feels like I stretched this morning.
Let's start.
So my back feels good enough for me to stand the required 13 to 14 hours per day that I'm on my feet.
Yeah, you're a teacher, you're an educator in Norfolk, Virginia, is that correct? Or Virginia Beach?
I'm in Chesapeake, Virginia. That's okay. Where I teach.
Chesapeake, Virginia. What school? Shout them out.
I'm at Indian River High School in Chesapeake, Virginia, man.
Have you always taught high school?
I started in my first day. I was a student teacher. It was October 23rd, 1996.
Gotcha.
And that was in Chesapeake. And then I worked in Norfolk for a few years. And then I worked in California for a few years. Okay. Just two, actually, for a couple of years while Barbara was doing her internship, while she was working her doctoral program. And then Chesapeake in 2004 until now.
Okay, hold up. Time out. We're not going to just glaze over the fact that there are two doctors in the house. Okay, I know you wanted to skate past that, but you have two doctors in the house, a la Cosby-esque show, right? We got two professionals. I'm sure either one of you could have been a lawyer if you wanted to, but two professionals. We're going to celebrate that, especially in the Black community. Continue. That was just a quick aside. My fault.
Yeah, well, Barbara's smarter. She has a doctoral degree in clinical psychology.
Yeah.
My doctoral degree is in education.
Okay. What pushed you into education, or was it even a push?
Freud would say it was all because of my father, because he was a teacher. So my earliest memory of my father was seeing him teach, and he had these models of the human head, the human skull, the brain. And I
Okay.
would always pick it up and play with it and break it.
Ah,
And he would teach, so he taught biology, and he would sometimes work as a substitute teacher when I
okay.
was in grade school and middle school and high school.
Now, will he be your
And
substitute, or that was just the thing that he was doing?
once he was my substitute once.
Okay.
He was actually subbing for my class, my ninth grade year,
Wow.
and
That's a critical year.
it
That's the
was
year you think you're
amazing.
cool.
Oh, I was not cool in ninth grade. I was not cool, and it was not cool to have your dad sub because
True.
everybody was joking you about, "Oh, man, come on, man, my dad's just trying to teach us how to play basketball." So I just kept my head down and we dribbled, but I for some reason, you looking at your father,
Yeah.
and that has a lot to do with why I'm teaching, and I know exactly why I ended up teaching because,
Wow.
yeah, I saw him teaching.
Okay. But it was something that you ultimately wanted to do. You saw the reference, you saw the model. It wasn't necessarily, hey, you go be a teacher because this is what our family does. Was it your decision, or was it mildly
I
influenced?
he was always teaching because
Okay.
my father was the minister at the masjid. So
Gotcha.
I just
We're going to
always
come back to
remember
that because
seeing
I know
that.
that just went over somebody's head. Yeah, I wouldn't know what a mass jit is unless you just said it before we started rolling. So we'll definitely come back to that. All right, I feel like we're getting off into the story, but I want to kind of give a backdrop to your childhood. So clearly
Mm.
it sounds like a continuous interaction with your father. He was around, but how and where did you grow up?
I grew up We moved from East Orange, New Jersey
Oh,
to we moved to Virginia. So I grew up in parts of Chesapeake, Virginia, and I grew up in parts of South Norfolk, Virginia.
okay. What was the dynamic like? What was your childhood, your earliest childhood memories? What was the environment like? Was it were you ever in endangered environments? Was it pretty much middle class? Just give us a reference as to how you the how of growing up.
Poor black family.
Okay. Okay.
The typical poor black family.
Okay.
And there were four of us, and my mother was always with us at home while my father was always at work. We were
Sure.
the typical poor black family. The dad
Gotcha.
comes home angry. His name was James. We were the family in good times.
The prototype.
We were the prototype family. Dad was always angry when he came home. I was always goofing off because I was trying to get attention.
Yeah.
Never could get attention. So what do? You goof off. So I was the goofball character, and we would eat the typical poor black family dinner every
Sure.
night, and
Sure.
we lived off of processed foods and welfare cheese. That was the big block when
Gotcha.
you could cut it,
Saw
and
it. Okay.
it wouldn't even melt when you tried
Okay.
to make a
It's the
grilled cheese
chewy.
sandwich.
Yeah.
That
A
was
hot
it.
chewy
So,
cheese sandwich. Hot chewy cheese
yeah.
sandwich.
But
That's
hey, I was the only one on my street and one of very few in the whole neighborhood who actually had a father who was at home.
mm,
So, hey, he was angry. He
yeah.
didn't talk much, but I had a father.
Yeah. What was the dynamic like? And it sounds very akin to my story, a lot of stories, not necessarily angry, but just the less communicative father in the house. What was your dynamic like with him? Even though he was, maybe angry at times or didn't communicate often, did you fear him? Could you go to him and ask him things and have conversations, or was it kind of uh that was a ruler and there were the rest, right? There was he ruled, and that was law, and there wasn't a lot of conversation and negotiation around what he said.
It was 1986 or 87. My friend Kevin goes, "Man, we're not going over your house, man. Your house is the library. You can't say anything because my father would come home from a long day of work, and it was everybody be quiet.
Okay.
I just want to sit.
Yeah.
Don't say anything. So you couldn't make noise. So you had to get out of the house. And
Gotcha.
no, he was the archetype. Like, don't
Okay.
like, hey, Dad, what do you think about? All right, no problem. No, you're not going to talk. And
Okay.
didn't talk. He wasn't communicative. It was the archetype, man.
Yeah.
What did he say? What was the August Wilson monologue? I ain't gotta like you. You got a roof over your head.
Right.
You got clothes in your back.
Right.
You got food in your belly.
These are the requirements. Requirements met. So is he still living? I want to be respectful.
He is still living.
Okay.
And I try my best to reach out now. Okay. So I'll send a message through text, just a video. Okay. Once a week, just to try to reach out. But I don't hear back from him. But that's not a big deal because we may have talked over the last 30, 35 years, maybe a dozen times.
Wow. So I had a really interesting conversation with my father about his fatherhood or his fathering approach, his approach to being a father. Probably 2 months ago. I'm 42. He's 73 now. But it was the first time we had a real heart-to-heart about, here's what I thought about the situation, and here's the why the situation was what it was, right? And we had understanding as men. For me, that was closure is a terrible, it was a needed conversation that gave me more context as into who he was as a father and who I am and am becoming, right? I wanted to be informed about what things am I more prone to, what things did he know about his father? So we had that conversation. At any point in your adult life, did you have that dialogue with your father? Was there an understanding of the why? Was it not, I did my job, 18 years. And
I made several attempts. Okay. And he would always dismiss it. I would write letters and say, I would write letters. One letter I wrote in 2001, when my firstborn son was about 6 months old. And I wrote him, I write this letter. I say, you were Darth Vader and I was Luke. You always ruled with this dark anger and you were always dark. You were just always dark. You were angry. You were violent. You were dark. I was Luke because I know that there was good in you. I know that there was good in you somewhere in there. And I wrote to him about, hey, man, in Return of the Jedi, Luke, he pleads with his father. Come on, man. I need for you to feel that good. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
My father said, hey, man, you can stop. He told my brother, yo, man, tell your brother to stop sending these letters.
Knock it off. Wow.
Yo, man, I'm sick of your brother sending these letters, man. He needs to get over it, man. Get over it. That's because we generally treat traumatic experiences and traumatic events in households, especially the Black household. We treat it with, let the passage of time heal it, smooth it over. All right, no one's talking about any of that anymore. The passage of time, get over it. And no, I never got over my father kicking me out the house at the age of 19. I was angry for years. I was angry for years. And out of the blue, 3 years ago, Thanksgiving, he just shows up at my door. And I meet him out at the porch like, hey, man.
You lost?
Right. So, and I'm thinking, what can I do for you? And he sits down on we have a chair outside on the porch and he says, I was wrong what I did years ago. But he does, it was not definitive. You just say, I was wrong years ago. And I just want to let you know I was wrong for that. And if there's anything I can do for you now, let me know. And I appreciate that. My sons at that time were 17 and 15. They couldn't pick you out of a lineup.
Right.
It's maybe a little late for us to try to bring them up to speed because you still live 5 hours away. And I know that you're not going to make a consistent effort to forge a relationship at this point. And he didn't. But it was a nice gesture nonetheless. But it was just interesting to see like him try to make amends in his he tried to make amends. He didn't do a great job with it. But I'm lucky because I'm married to a psychologist. So I have a psychologist in the house to explain to me, well, why do I feel this way? I don't understand. And could you explain to me? And she effectively explained, I spend so much time just being furious, just angry with dad. And by the time he stopped by the house 3 years ago on that Thanksgiving night, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy. It was hard to explain. She says, no, you're just spent. You're emotionally spent. And no hard feelings, but I appreciate the gesture. And I, from that point on, I send a message. He doesn't respond to them, but I send them nonetheless. He may respond to a message I sent last week in another month.
Yeah.
Because by this time now his body's breaking down. He has diabetes.
Wow.
And I understand.
Yeah.
I understand because there's a book, Prince of Tides.
Okay.
That explains how you're not angry with dad. You're angry with the dad of your childhood.
So, and I wanted to touch on that, not so eloquently as knowing the book, but so was any part of your early parenting or marriage experience impacted by the level of anger that you just kind of characterized, if that's not too invasive?
It had an effect on my marriage. It had an effect on my parenting.
Yeah.
Because everything dad taught me about fatherhood convinced me to do the exact opposite of what he did as a father.
Yeah.
Everything I learned from my father, watching him as a husband, taught me and convinced me to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Which led to a successful marriage. And I would like to say successful parenting.
Sure.
I can't make that claim because my youngest son is in love with Pop Smoke.
So so there's an episode for that, right? I got to hit like 25. Make sure people are with me before we start antagonizing folks and getting to
no disrespect, may rest in peace.
Yeah. No, I have such a we could really pivot, but I don't want to. I don't want to pivot on this episode.
Not my cup of tea, but I understand. I get it.
Everything's not for everybody, but I'm making a note to call the good doctor back for a fun episode on what real music is. People, don't get stuck on that. We're going to move on. So you becoming a reform is not a bad one. A healed individual, finding your parenting style that worked for you in your home, finding your way to be a husband that is present and provide what what your wife needs. We're not going to talk about how consistently, because then I'd have to answer that too. But just you becoming a better person. What was the process like? Was it intentional? I know you have Dr. Barbara as a spouse, which is the cheat code, right? Just having access to her period is a cheat code because I tell her she's my hero. She thinks I'm joking. And just for reference, people, I knew his wife before I knew him, right? To me, she's BJ, and I don't know if she's going to like me saying that on this episode, but it's hard for me to call her Barbara. Anyhow, but how was that? What was that process like? I imagine she was instrumental, but what was the time horizon from anger, I am not positively contributing to this house, to where you had a control of it and started working towards mastering self, which is a forever journey?
When he got kicked, I was kicked out of the house. Dad said, "Get your stuff, get out. As a matter of fact, let me pack it up for you, put it out on the
Oh, wow.
street." That was 19 years of age.
Mm.
At 19 years of age, I'm homeless.
Wow.
And I was also in college.
Mm.
So thankfully, I had a friend who said, "Hey, man, you can live up in the attic of this dorm where I'm rooming." And that was a godsend. So we're talking about getting kicked out of the house while you're in college and finishing up college. And then from college, we're talking about maybe 10 years after college before I spoke with him and just had a
Oh,
conversation with
wow.
him. And during that time, I would maybe just give him a call just to hang up. I would ride by his
Whoa,
house.
whoa, 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 whoa! We're not gonna ride past that. There's some passive aggression
It was
in that. That was, you needed him to know
very,
that. Wow.
very. It was. I would just pick up the phone and I was ready to just curse him out, and I
Yeah.
would just hang up, and I would drive by his house with a rock. So from time to time, I would just go way off course because I'm living in one part of town in someone's attic, and I would have a rock, and I would just contemplate. I would like plan. How can I do this? I would map it out. I'm going to throw the rock through the window, and then I'm going to run. But I need someone to pick me up at the corner so he won't know that it's me. Right, because people just randomly walk by and throw rocks through windows. Right. Of course, it's not the scapegoat son you kicked out at the age of 19, but
wow,
that was a period of anger that I carried for so long, and it took Barbara to constantly remind me, "You're not your father. You're not your father. Hey, what he did to you is wrong." And even to this day, she still tells me, "You are not your father. Aren't you happy?" But now she adds, "Aren't you happy? You're nothing like your father." So I would tell my children, "You guys have to be very happy. I am nothing like my father."
How much insight or information did you have into your father's father in that relationship?
My father's father, I would ask, "Hey, what was he like? What was he like?" And it's always hush, hush, hush. You can learn about him if you watch this documentary on who killed Malcolm X. My father is the person who, when you look at the screen, it says James Shabazz X. When they're interviewing him, and he's saying, "We don't know what Malcolm did. We don't know. We're just not sure what Malcolm is talking." That's my grandfather. So my
Wow.
grandfather, and he's also listed in a couple of books actually, on the history of the Nation of Islam, in that during that block of time when Malcolm X was assassinated, and then my grandfather ended up being assassinated in what was it, September of, so he named me because I was born in August 10th, 1973. And then when I looked up the records, my grandfather was assassinated. I believe it said September 1973. But for many, many years, he was talked about in the family as almost like a prophet. And then I saw the documentary, and the director was pointing fingers at him for maybe potentially being responsible for part of the conspiracy to assassinate Malcolm X.
That's heavy.
And I said, "Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. I was taught my whole life that he was this great man. Like, any merit to this?" I called up a cousin, and she goes, "Hey, she said, I know. I saw it too. She says, "But my dad said that they're just speaking lies. They have no idea what they're talking about." And I'm thinking, okay, but all right, I understand, because everything up until that point was hushed tones. And then I asked my mother one year, Hey, what was my grandfather like? Because no one talked about it. No one ever. Because it was very traumatic for the whole family when he was assassinated. And since Black people are just now discovering therapy, it's called mental
Right.
therapy.
Right.
No one was ever, ever counseled. So they're traumatized to this day over that incident. And to this day, I could call a cousin or an aunt or an uncle, hey, could you tell me more about how my grandfather was assassinated? They'll go, no, 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 not over the phone, not over the phone, not over the phone. No, 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 not over the
Really?
phone. And then if you go down to visit them, they'll go, okay, let me tell you something. Well, I can't really talk about it. Like, we're
Wow.
in a room that's empty. Like
Yeah.
they still think the room is bugged and that's trauma. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I asked my mother, she said, he was a tyrant.
Mm.
And I said, well, I that no surprise there because my father was a tyrant. So
Right.
he was the archetype based on his father's model, and it makes sense.
That's so. Facts aside, verification of the facts aside, just his proximity to such an iconic figure and pivotal point in history, Black history period. That's heavy, man. And then for it to be hush hush, I am now in my mind going through all of the scenarios that, like, this is a movie playing out in my mind of what could have happened. And that's a lot to not acknowledge, or to have the information and then have to suppress it because that was what was best for the family. I can kind of understand how he could carry that kind of anger and not and have the lack of communication. The listening audience, I wasn't expecting this. This was not rehearsed. But that is a very that's a wild story. That's why, and for personal reasons, I'm going to check in to see when you learn more about that, because there's a lot
It,
there.
it was always nice when they would talk to us in sound bites. Your grandfather, he took over the masjid when Malcolm X was assassinated. Your grandfather was known as the son of thunder. Your grandfather was a great man, and here are some pictures. And they would show us pictures, and in the pictures you would see Elijah Muhammad, my
Wow.
father. You would see my grandfather, and it was common for my father to get home from school with Muhammad Ali taking a nap on his couch, and the stories were beautiful.
Wow.
And getting an opportunity, I was maybe, how old was I? 8, maybe 8 or 9. And Muhammad Ali is standing before him and he goes, "What you got, huh? What you got, huh? Huh?" And I just froze with sheer awe, like, huh, huh, come on, come on, come on. And it was just, this is absolutely amazing.
And that was your life.
And that was life, but you can't get them to talk about it. Because if I were to ask my father now, hey, I remember meeting Muhammad Ali. Where were we again? And why was I
Uh,
standing next to Muhammad Ali? Could you please explain it to me?
yeah.
Because this memory is etched in stone, but there was never much dialogue from my father. It was, get in the
Yeah.
car. Come on, let's go. There was no, hey, we're going to a conference for the Nation of Islam, and it's going to be, but instead he'll say, here's a picture of you in your FOI uniform with your brother. All
Gotcha.
right. Okay. The Fruit of Islam. We have our Fruit
Yeah.
of Islam suits even as toddlers. That's amazing.
Wow.
Never elaborated, never gave us backstory. We were just told your grandfather was a great man.
With such a rich history, even with the holes in it from your perspective now, did it create, or does it create, any pressure for how you live, or how you measure up, what your legacy should be or represent? Not that it duplicates, but just those are some big shoes to fill, for lack of a better expression.
Derek, I've spent I've maybe invested 8 to 10 years trying to get dad's approval. Gentlemen, fellas, brothers, sons, fathers, you will never get dad's approval. Never.
Wow.
It doesn't matter what you do. I graduated from college. I got a job teaching, and my father says, you need to go get a master's degree now.
Never enough.
I got my master's degree, went straight back to school, got my master's degree. He said, that's good. That's good. But when you get that doctoral degree, that's going to be something. I got my doctoral degree. And this is through hearing through my brothers, because my brothers, they still kept in contact with my father. So we would have communication through third parties, because I couldn't just speak to my father. Now the anger was ebbing as I matured into my 20s. It wasn't gone, but it was getting there. And especially after I had my first son, then it was, hey, I don't have time to hate on anybody anymore, man. I'm going to be much better than you ever were. But you didn't get that approval. You know, I got my doctoral degree, and he found out I got my doctoral degree. He said, you know what he needs to do now? He needs to write a book. So a few years back, I wrote a book, and I didn't tell anyone, because you're not going to set me up again. I already know the game by now. What are you going to say now, man? You need to go to the moon. And man, no, we're not doing that anymore. You're just not going to get it. You're not going to get dad's approval. And if you're trying to figure it, just saying, you're not.
So the devil's advocate a bit, or a lot. Was that could it have been nothing more than just a way of motivating you and pushing you to greatness? And I know that's super generic, but I mean, what was he trying to push you to a point where you failed and it would be the aha? Because you kept doing it. I mean, you kept answering the other piece, and this might be the one where it gets invasive. Why you? Why it sounds like it was only you of the siblings that couldn't communicate directly. How did you get on the outside looking in?
I'm the oldest.
Touche. First out the gate. He was figuring it out.
I'm the oldest, man. And as the oldest, you were supposed to follow in dad's footsteps. And I realized, wow, my father was never really pushing me to finish college. He would say, you need to learn a trade. And years later, I asked my mother, you know, why was my father always trying to tell me to learn a trade? And why wasn't he trying to advocate for college? I don't understand. She said, because when your father finished school, he was accepted to a medical school up in New Jersey. And she said he was the first Black man to get accepted to this medical school. But his father told him, no, you need to learn a trade. Oh, okay. I see where we're going here. I get it.
Do you still have the book?
Which one?
That you wrote?
Yes, I do. It was for its Sports Management Academy. And I connected with a sports agent, and his name is Michael Chamberlain. And we met in 2015 or 2016. And Michael loves teaching. So at the time, Michael was doing public speaking gigs, because the guy just loves teaching, because he was a professional basketball player. And then he became a trainer, and then he became a sports agent. And we connected because he said, hey, I saw that you were a speech coach, man. I want to get ready for these gigs. And we would set up training, and I said, man, you're pretty good. You really have a good story too. And, we should package what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And now we hold sports management academy workshops based on the book that we did. And it's all Michael's story, it's an amazing story, man, about how he started as a player and eventually worked his way up to a trainer, and then eventually worked his way up to becoming a sports agent. And now he's a part owner of B'nai Herzliya, a Israeli basketball club overseas in Israel. It's a beautiful story.
Wow. So the Pro Associates was birthed at what year? When did that form?
The first time I started, when I figured out I need to just package this, it was 2008. I would start getting all of these football players in my public speaking class. And why am I getting all these football players, man? Like, all right, it's great. Normally you just have students who are trying to take an elective. Hey, I need an easy A. Come on, man. And then gradually the word got out that, yo, man, why is this class just full of football players? And then when I finally made the connection, the coaches were funneling them into the public speaking class because they got tired of the way their players were fumbling through these interviews post-game.
Yeah.
And it cracked me up, man, because that is how I got started working with athletes. And I owe everything to these students who would, you've seen a post-game interview. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, it is what it is. And the cliche meter just started. Click, ding, 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 ding.
Right.
and from there, I would reach out to NFL players. And it was in 2014. I connected with a guy who played for the Packers. And his name is Niall Diggs. And he played with Green Bay, played with the Carolina Panthers, he played with the St. Louis Rams, and he wrapped up his career with the San Diego Chargers. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, man, I'm a speech coach, and I see that, hey, you may want to try to get your foot in the door in a television program. And he says, all right, I'm working on a television program now as an analyst, but I do need to get better. So we started the program, and I already had the curriculum because I've been doing this for, oh my gosh, for a decade plus. And he eventually got his own segment on that news program out in San Diego. And that's how all of that started, as far as why I wanted to connect with pro athletes, college athletes, high school athletes. And then it turned into just the pro associates, because now I'm just so excited to work with not only athletes, but students, teachers, professionals, people who are nervous about presentation, people who are nervous about on-camera presence, people who are nervous about getting in front of a camera and doing a podcast. That scares people.
It's not as easy as you think, guys.
It's not.
Yeah. So purpose or passion? Which is it? Is it both?
It's passion, because it's so much fun to work with someone who is willing to get better.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a student, a teacher, an athlete, anyone who wants to get better. And when you see that person putting in that effort, it's so fulfilling. And that goes back again to, wow, I do enjoy teaching. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy training. And I'm sure Freud would say, yeah, that goes back to what you saw as a child with your father. So,
yeah.
Hey, I owe my father for that. I owe him for that, man.
The what is it? The ends justify the means.
Just saying.
Is that?
Just saying, man.
So there's a period where one can listen to the podcast to this point and assumed this transformation I'm about to address happened at the same time. But when did you become this person? Or were you always, you said you were looking for attention early on. So were you always this expressive? Did you always love the art of language? Because you're a language artist, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, but like you have a command of words. Like, where did that come from?
Trying to emulate my father. My brother James, he told me, he said he can remember when I would correct people at the bus stop, which also explains why I would always get beat up.
Oh, I say you had to be the most popular kid.
Yo, somebody tell Black Encyclopedia Brown, yo, he got to chill with that. Correct me one more time. Correct me one more time, cuz.
Yeah.
Boom. I'm like, well, actually, you're abbreviating a word, cousin, that doesn't need to. Oh, I was just trying to help you with your
hilarious.
Speech. So yeah,
hilarious.
I got beat up all of the time because I couldn't help myself, man. I couldn't help it. Like, you're ending a sentence with a preposition.
Yeah. At.
Keep it up here.
Oh,
keep it up.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help you out.
That is hilarious.
Again, so where'd that come from? Dad, man.
As much as you wanted to separate and prove that you were different, all of the things that you got from him are contributing to your success to a large degree.
Yes. And I have to give him credit for always being so hard on us, man. We couldn't even watch Good Times.
Wow.
What do you mean I can't watch Good Times? Like, you're not gonna watch that cooning buffoonery. Like, so you got to go over a friend's house and to catch an episode of Good Times, or turn it off before he got home from work. Oh, change the channel. Click, because there were only 3 channels at the time. But we were
with the pliers. Were you changing with the pliers? Okay.
We definitely broke the knob off ours, so we definitely had the pliers. But he was very strict, and my mother tried her best to buffer, but mom was suffering from depression 90% of the time, so she wasn't that much help.
Wow.
And that meant you were all alone to face Dad's wrath every day and Dad's discipline every day. So I would go to school, I would get written up, I would get sent home for goofing off and acting up because I was a handful trying to get attention. I would come back from a suspension. As soon as I would get back from a suspension, hey, yo, what's good, everybody? Oh, man, it's so good to be back. I would get sent home again.
Right.
And now as a teacher, I understand those teachers were just trying to teach.
Yeah.
Like, when I was going, it was paradise. And as soon as I got back, they were, oh, my gosh, he's back. He's starting up again. Let me write you up again. Let's send you right back home, buddy. Go home, get another beating from Dad, and then that would keep me on that would give you about 2 days of good behavior, and then I'll start cutting up again.
Do you think your ability to articulate at a very high level helped or hindered your ability to communicate with your family as the lead, as a husband, as a father? Because just like the reference that you gave, getting you beat up, that wasn't effective communication. You were articulating well. You had the rules down pat, but you wasn't really reading the room, right?
No, man. No. And I learned though, Derek, I wasn't I wasn't dumb, man. I acted like an idiot, and I was the class clown, but I knew how to code switch. Brother, I can I can code switch with the best of them.
Yeah.
And I was not dumb enough to run my mouth in certain areas of my neighborhood. I understood very quickly how to code switch. However, when my son was about 4 or 5, we were at Chuck E. Cheese pizza joint, and some girl says, "What is you doing? Move, what is you doing, boy?" And I heard my son say, "It's what are you
Are you doing?
doing?"
He knows not what he does, but he does.
I don't understand. What is this girl? I'm going, oh boy, here it comes. And I can see her balling her fist. I can see her clenching her fist. And oh, all right, come on there, buddy. Let's leave Laquanisha alone. All right,
Yeah.
that's enough, son. Don't do that. Please. Please trust
Yeah.
me. Your father has been here. Let's not do that, son. Don't correct people. But
that throws an interesting wrench into the discussion. Did your kids ever suffer socially because of how they were trained, they were conditioned to articulate, and sometimes, just like in that situation, it doesn't come off as being cool or being down. Did they ever have any of those struggles, or not so much?
they went to a private school.
Okay.
They attended.
Okay.
These guys went to a private
Okay.
school. A
Okay.
private school up until the 8th grade.
Yeah.
They attended a private school.
Okay.
So these guys are so acclimated to a decent form of education, number one.
Yeah.
But they were also loaded up in the car and driven to family functions in Greensboro, North Carolina,
Gotcha.
where if you're not careful, someone's going to cuss you out and say, hey, look here, Joe Collins, you can chill with all that fancy talk. You can chill with
Yeah.
all that. We ain't trying to hear all that here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Grandma. I will make sure I clean it up.
Gotcha.
Apologize, Nana. Didn't mean to offend you, Nana. This mac and cheese is hitting. Apologize for saying it was delectable.
It's hitting.
That's better. More like it. So they
Okay.
understood how to code switch and flip it back and forth too.
Gotcha. Scale of 1 to 10, how effectively did you communicate with your sons in their teenage years?
I asked her yesterday, honey, did I do a good job? Did I do a good job? Because they're both at college now, both of them.
Yeah, they're men. Yeah.
They're 18 and they're 20. And I ask her all of the time, did I do a good job? I'm always fearful about not doing a good enough job with them as far as being nurturing, as far as being kind, as far as being attentive.
Yeah.
And Barbara told me yesterday, she says, you did a great job.
Fantastic.
You did a great job. And I always have to flip back to Rolodex, which is easy to do. I have an elephant's memory capacity. However, when it comes to trying to remember how good I was with my sons, it gets sketchy.
Yeah.
And then I get nervous. I have no idea what that's about. I just don't know. I have no idea.
So mine, to a lesser degree, as my story was not as cinematic as yours. You have a very cinematic, very rich, screen ready history with your family. I find, hopefully I won't continue to be in this predicament, just trying to overcorrect and missing the moment through overthinking. I know I'm not the only one, but I don't know if you share that same sentiment, if you had some challenges in that arena as well.
Yes. I was always concerned because no matter what you do, dad is still in you.
Yeah.
He's still in you. There's a book, Fire in the Belly, on being a man. It's written by Sam King. And it's about manhood, being a man. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a man in your teenage years? What does it mean to be a man in your 20s and your 30s? Now your 40s? What does it mean to be a parent? What type of parent are you? How do you communicate? What are male gender norms? Well, the
Right.
male gender norms that you and I are familiar with are I feed you, I
Yeah.
got clothes on your back, and there's a roof over your head. Shut up. Don't,
Yeah.
don't make any noise. And if you act up, you're going to get a beating
Right.
physically.
Physically.
But the gender norms that I embraced were the complete opposite of everything dad did.
Mm.
So I was always, always willing and conscious to dad, everything stops. I just stop. Everything. You got my full attention. What do you need? Talk to me. Full attention.
I am getting there. Right. So part of my struggle, and for the loyal listeners, the themes are the themes, right? These are challenges that come up in every conversation. So I'm not regurgitating this because I'm running out of things to say. But I would gravitate more to the thing that I was successful at, which wasn't parenting. And I put more focus in that, thinking that somehow there's a balance. If I'm 90% great at my job, 10%, as a sucky parent, the net, is still happy family. And it didn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So this process is really about me being more aware and conscious of how I parent, especially to my sons. Yes, I have daughters, people. I love them equally.
Ooh.
It's just not the direction of this podcast. It's applicable, but it's dear son. Man, there's can you come back at some point? I'm not cutting it short right now, but because you threw too many. There's too many things that are going to be reverberating in my mind until I get some clarity from you on another conversation. But I want to kind of lighten it up as we wind down. One last thing on a more serious note: fatherhood versus business owner. Which one more informs the other? And the reason I'm asking is because you're dealing with athletes. I would imagine a large concentration are men in their formative years, and you're helping them be able to communicate in order to increase opportunities in their life to come, right? Not afterlife, but in the later stages of their life, they're transitioning, becoming professionals, whether that's sports, entertainment, or otherwise, or normal tracks. Was that easy because you had all the practice with your boys, or did that process help you recognize, I need to address this with my boys. These are things that I'm giving to these strangers, but I'm not giving it to my boys.
Oh, that is an advantage of being a father, because Sunday, one of my, this was Sunday night. One of the guys I talked to, because after a while, you end up establishing not only rapport, but a relationship, because I want to always keep in touch with these guys I've worked with, because they'll all tell you the same thing when it comes to agents. Hey man, how was the last time you heard from your agent? I haven't heard from him since I stopped playing. So they have these guys who worked as their mentor and their counselor and their sounding board. But once they finished playing, they haven't heard from them again.
Gotcha.
And that resonated. And I made a purpose effort to keep up with all these guys I connect with, because I can't be the person, all right, you're good, we've trained, see you later. No, we've established a rapport by this point. I'm a father and you're a father. And the majority of all of them are fathers.
Mm.
And one of the guys he played 8 years in the NFL. He started with New Orleans Saints and then he played for the Giants.
Mm.
And he called me on Sunday. He says, guess what, man? I got custody of my son.
Wow.
And it was just the best news
Yeah.
because for 6 years, he would always talk about how hard it was to try to get custody and how, oh man, she's just giving me a hard time, doc. And
Yeah.
man, if her boyfriend says one more thing to me, like, hey, no, you're not going to do that. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
You are not going to destroy this guy's head so you can't end up in jail. Then you'll never see your son.
Right.
And being a father really helps with those relationships. And it's so wonderful to have that advantage because I can share all of the mistakes I've made as a father, and I can share all of the experiences that I've had to hopefully make a very, very good impression on my sons, man. And it's wonderful how fatherhood has made an impact on what I do with my business. It's beautiful.
Is there any part of you that still desires for your father to be proud of you and acknowledge it?
Yes. D, you got, you doing the Oprah on me, man. Come on, man. You just Oprah'd me. You got me. Man. Oh, man, you got me.
I genuinely want to know. Genuinely want to know.
Almost got me.
Yeah.
It's got me tearing up here. Sorry, though. That's I have no problem with that, but I never faced that. And now that you mention it, I would love for my father to acknowledge, hey, look at this book, man. Hey, let me show you this lineup of professional athletes I've worked with. Look at the NBA players I've worked with. Look at the NFL players I've worked with. Look at these dope WNBA players I've worked with. And let me show you the fruits of this training. Look at them. Look at this one right here on television. We actually worked together before she actually worked as an analyst on that game. Listen what she's going to say. See, we actually talked about that prior to the game. That phrase right there. I would love to share that with him.
Yeah.
But I cannot open myself up again because I am already familiar with the definition of madness, which is trying to do the same thing
and a different result.
Nah, man, you're not going to get me again. But Derek, I do appreciate you. I do appreciate you opening that up. You got me with the Oprah, man. That hit me in the stomach like oh, wow, that was a gut punch, brother. Hey, man.
So it's always a reflection of me, right? Like this whole process is about transparent. And I appreciate you, not throwing the flag and calling the interview, calling the conversation done. But I think there's a common kryptonite amongst all men in this rejection. And we never address it because we're always moving on to the next thing and proving our worth through some physical thing or some accomplishment. I hate rejection. Do you know how long it took me to ask you to be on this podcast? Seriously. And I mean, ultimately we had the conversation. You was like, dude, I think you're dope. I'm like, oh, you think I'm dope? I didn't want to ask you because even if you had a legitimate reason, I'm still working on not feeling some kind of way about you because our schedules didn't align. Like how petty is that? I'm 42. 42 dad, 42 dad. You know what I mean? Like how petty is that? But that's the reality. And then I had a conversation with my son. The episode that aired, well, today at the time that I'm recording this was a conversation about me with my son about how he feels about my approach to him.
Woo.
And he didn't want to approach me in certain points because he didn't want to be rejected.
Woo.
He felt he had already gone through it in his mind and played it out that the end result was going to be some form of rejection. And I went through that with my dad. I dislike my dad more because of the conversations we didn't have because I had him in my head. And he didn't get a chance to say no. But he had already said no to a lot. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is be more aware of my flippant responses to my son. It doesn't mean a lot to me when I'm saying it, but in the moment, I don't know what he went through to psych himself up to even to bring the conversation to me.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. So that wasn't an angle to get a moment out of you.
Ooh, boy. Is that the same? Is that the same show where you ask your son, "Have you ever seen me cry?" And he's like, "Well, no." It's like, "Well, how does that make you feel?" Like, no, I don't expect you to see you cry. Like,
yeah,
all right. I'm human too, son.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah. But that wasn't based on his misunderstanding. That was based on the demonstration, the history.
Boy,
I don't know, man. Clearly there has to be a part 2, 3, 4, or series. I don't know. I got to next time I got to do it in person, man. We got to be in the same room.
Definitely.
I don't know when the next time I'm flying into Norfolk, but this process is going to have me on the plane often. I'm going to have to watch this back to see what we didn't get to. I know it's been great for me. I'm looking forward to the next conversation. I appreciate you. I mean, we didn't get to highlight your business like I wanted to. There was some things in the dynamics of living with a psychologist that I wanted to get into, but I think it was answered in conversation. Like the conversation reflected how these things have impacted you. How can the people reach you if they want to reach out just to follow you on social? If they're interested in your services. I actually have I have a friend that's an agent. I have a friend that's an NFL coach. I'm definitely going to connect them with your information because they're in that space. But how do I guess a quick summary of your offering, your business offering, and then how people can connect with you if they're interested.
I've been a speech coach since 1997, and I've coached middle school, high school, college, and that made way for the business model that eventually grew into coaching athletes, NFL players, NBA players, WNBA players, teachers, students, professionals, because I love coaching. I love training. I love teaching. And I could be reached on Instagram at Dr. Shabazz. And I'm always on Instagram because I have a problem. It's called Instagram.
The problem is the solution, or the solution is the problem?
You know how much work I would get done if I wasn't on Instagram? Like, man, I'm just going to post another tip here. Here's a post-game interview tip. I'm just going to post it, and then I'm going to get off. 2 hours later, I'm going, all right, I'm just going to get off. Like, God dang it. I just can't post and ghost. Yeah. It's impossible.
Post and ghost.
I can't. It's impossible. If you tell me if you can get on Instagram, all right, here is the Dear Son podcast post for today. Zoop, I'm out. I'm going. If you can look me in my face and tell me that you can do that, you're either lying to me or you have the discipline of a prophet.
Yeah, I plead the fifth.
I mean, come on.
I plead the fifth.
Man, like, okay, here we go. Here you go. Here's your post-game interview tip. Here's for athletes. Here's a professional development tip. This is for teachers. Hey, here's a tip for students, those of you who are trying to earn honor roll. And I'm just going to post it, and I'm going to go, wait a minute. Why is this cat on that roof? And is it chasing a squirrel? Let's find out what happens. 2 hours later, I'm watching a horse fighting an alligator. Why? What have you done in the span of 2 hours? I can't even tell you the content because it all goes by like a blur because it's all junk content. And I've wasted 2 hours of my day when I should have been working. How much could I get done if I could actually just post and ghost?
Yeah, this content is my offering to the world to kind of balance that, right? So my 1 to 1 billion ratio of positive to crap. That's what this is. At Dr. Shabazz on IG, definitely follow him, not because I'm asking, but like I literally. He'll post a teacher tip, but it's really a life tip. And I think that's really clever how you're fooling people to thinking that this is really about teaching. It's about life, right? So reach out if you just want some good guidance. Athletes, students, teachers, for sure, anybody in the professional space. I've been a leader in the professional sense for a while in corporate America. People being able to articulate, being able to have a presentation. Like I cringe. It is one of the more annoying things about leading people is when you have to rely on them to represent you when speaking to other people, right? And that doesn't make me a good manager if I never let that go. And I've actually had people that I've recommended development for in that area. So the good doctor, I appreciate you, man. For my listeners, if you're on the audio podcast, please follow. If you haven't done it already, you know the drill. Rate us on Apple. I have a chance to really do something special. We're putting a plan together, and I'm going to say it, right? Because if you don't put it out there, how do you get held accountable? My goal over the next year is to have 2 podcasts in the top 100 parenting space. So this one is in parenting category. Healthy Marriage is Dope. The podcast that I do with my wife is in the parenting category, and I believe we have an opportunity to do that. But it takes feedback from the community, right? I like it when you text me and tell me it was great. I like it when you send me a private message and tell me that was great, but hey, make that stuff public so it counts. To the family on YouTube, hey, this has been an experience. I know the dynamic has been a little bit different, but I told you, this is a journey. Some of it is bumpy. Some of it is more is lighter. It is more comedic, and we have fun. All of it is the fatherhood journey. I appreciate you guys. God bless you. Peace.
The Dear Son podcast is produced by D. John's Live Studios. All rights reserved. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time.